أي سلاح ولو كان كاسرا للتوازن.
ليش ما كسر التوازن الدول؟
أنا مع المصلحة الوطنية.
Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, May 14th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. Prime Minister-designate Tamam Salam discusses with President Sulaiman the latest development regarding the formation of a new cabinet. The Progressive Socialist Party says that Shelbil proposed several electoral draft law based on the winner-takes-all system regarding an attempt to resolve the dispute on the Orthodox gathering plan. US President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron pledged their continued support for the people of Syria, including more humanitarian aid. Prime Minister-designate Tamam Salam discussed with President Michel Sulaiman the latest developments regarding the formation of a new cabinet, and Speaker Nabih Berri said he wanted to serve as a guarantor in the new government. Sources told the Daily Star that a crisis over the cabinet formation has been temporarily averted, with Salam deciding to postpone announcing his new lineup after his meeting with Berri. His decision to shelve his proposal, Member 14 of the cabinet, has diffused for now a major crisis that threatened to destabilize the country following fierce opposition from the Hezbollah-led coalition of the March 8, what they perceived as a fait accompli government planned by the premier-designate. Last week, Salam offered to be the guarantor in the new cabinet and vowed to appease the March 8 coalition and step down himself if the group's concern were not taken into consideration. In other local news, the fate of a parliamentary session scheduled to be held tomorrow to discuss a new electoral draft law is unclear over the lack of financial stances on the participation of two blocs for the March 14 alliance. The Kataib and the Lebanese forces are emerging the major players in guaranteeing a needed quorum of MPs for the 26th session. Media report says the March 8 coalition's members attend the General Assembly, an unlikely move over the lack of support of four supporters, along with the LF, which has 8 representatives in the parliament, but 2 of them are abroad, and they would still not be able to guarantee a quorum. The Progressive Socialist Party said that caretaker Interior Minister Marwan Shelbil proposed to it several electoral draft laws based on the winner-takes-all system in an attempt to resolve the dispute on the Orthodox gathering plan. Syria's opposition National Coalition warned that 30,000 civilians in the rebel-held town of Qusaid faced an extremely dangerous situation as regime troops prepared to attack. President Bashar al-Assad has mobilized military forces in the direction of the city of Qusaid in the province of Homs, the statement said, describing reports of dozens of tanks and large groups of soldiers on the outskirts of the town. The Syrian coalition released a statement calling on NGOs to head to Qusaid and for quick international action to help save 30,000 civilians facing imminent danger. The regime has made recapturing the town and the area in central Homs province a key objective, and fierce fighting has raged in the vicinity for months. The death toll in twin car bombings in a Turkish town near the Syrian border has increased to 50. And another body was recovered and a victim died in a hospital last night. Interior Minister Muammar Guler said the number of suspects held by the Turkish police has now risen to 13. And joining us live from Istanbul is Chiran Kenar, who is a journalist. Welcome, Chiran.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good. I wanted to ask you, the attacks in the town of Rihanli were the deadliest since the start of the uprising against the regime in Syria 2 years ago. And what do you expect the repercussions to be?
So Turkey is obviously caught between two fires. On the one hand, there is this hostile attack coming from Syria. I mean, at least the government officially blames Syria for these attacks. On the other hand, there are certain concerns of the government to take unilateral action against Syria. One concern is the Turkish public opinion, indeed, because the Turkish public opinion is not backing any kind of unilateral action and any kind of Turkish intervention into Syria. And the other factor is, of course, the international dynamics here. I'm talking about especially Turkey's relation with Russia. Russia is an important factor that deteriorates Turkey to take further action in this crisis. Obviously, Turkey is pledging the international community to take action, and it wants to share this burden with the international community. However, it's also clear that Turkey's calls fall short in this process, and obviously the international community does not have much incentive to take action in this crisis.
Right, but the Turkey was quick to blame a radical Marxist group affiliated with President Bashar al-Assad regime for the attack, but they denied the allegation. But how is this shifting? You know, we know Turkish-Syrian relations have already deteriorated. How is this? Is it making it worse? And what is going to happen next, do you believe?
I think the relations cannot become any worse. I mean, right now Turkey and Syria has no relations at all, and the only option that Turkey can make further is to launch a military attack against Syria.
Do you think that's possible? Do you think? Can we expect? Okay,
no.
All right.
No, I don't think that Turkey has any such move in its own agenda. That's why Turkey is urging the international public opinion, international community to take action.
Do you
As
think?
I said, Turkish. Yes,
I just want to say, do you think there could be any NATO interference on the side of Turkey?
Sorry?
Do you believe there could be any NATO push or any NATO aid on the side of Turkey?
Well, Turkey has urged NATO to take action before, when the Turkish jets were shut down by the Syrian regime. And this time Erdogan made a statement that they will not ask NATO to organize a summit on this issue. So I don't think that NATO is going to be involved in this crisis.
Okay. One last question for you, Chiran, today. How is this affecting, or do you think it is affecting at all, the 400,000 refugees, Syrian refugees now in Turkey?
This is a very good question. Unfortunately, in Turkey, the Syrian issue is used as a domestic political issue. So those who want to criticize the current government is using the Syrian issue. And unfortunately, we see the increase of an anti-Syrian refugee rhetoric in Turkey. This is vehemently dangerous.
Are they going to increase border security, you think?
Yes, that's for sure. I think Turkish state will take more actions in terms of keeping the borders more stable. However, unfortunately, in Turkey, we see an anti-Syrian refugee rhetoric on rise. In fact, in Reyhanlı, after these attacks, we hear stories that there are some mobs, Turkish mobs, who are attacking Syrian refugees.
Oh, okay.
As I said, this is a very dangerous situation, a Turkish state and Turkish public opinion should be more attentive on this issue.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Kenner, for joining us from Istanbul.
Thank you. Bye.
U.S. President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron pledged their continued support for the people of Syria, including more humanitarian aid and a push toward a transitional government to help bring peace. Obama said the United States would keep increasing pressure on Syrian President al-Assad to stop appalling violence in Syria and was still investigating the reported use of chemical weapons. Cameron said he saw an urgent window of opportunity before worst fears in Syria would be realized and said Britain would double its non-lethal support to Syrian opposition forces in the coming year.
We discussed Syria and the appalling violence being inflicted on the Syrian people. Together, we're going to continue our efforts to increase pressure on the Assad regime, to provide humanitarian aid to the long-suffering Syrian people, to strengthen the moderate opposition, and to prepare for a democratic Syria without Bashar al-Assad. And that includes bringing together representatives of the regime and the opposition in Geneva in the coming weeks to agree on a transitional body which would allow a transfer of power from Assad to this governing body.
None of us have any interest in seeing more lives lost, in seeing chemical weapons used, or extremist violence spreading even further. So we welcome President Putin's agreement to join an effort to achieve a political solution. The challenges remain formidable, but we have an urgent window of opportunity before the worst fears are realized. There is no more urgent international task than this. We need to get Syrians to the table to agree a transitional government that can win the consent of all of the Syrian people. But there will be no political progress unless the opposition is able to withstand the onslaught and put pressure on Assad so he knows there is no military victory. So we will also increase our efforts to support and to shape the moderate opposition. Britain is pushing for more flexibility in the EU arms embargo, and we will double non-lethal support to the Syrian opposition in the coming year.
Coming up next, Angelina Jolie announces she underwent a preventive double mastectomy to decrease her risk of developing breast cancer. Stay with us for this and more. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin welcomed Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu outside his residence in the Black Sea resort of Sochi. The talks between the two leaders would concentrate on the Syrian crisis, Israeli officials said prior to the meeting. Israel is concerned that Russia plans to sell Syrian President Assad an advanced air defense system that could complicate any foreign intervention. Russia said on Friday it had no new plans to sell an advanced air defense system, but left open the possibility it could deliver anti-aircraft missile systems under an existing contract. The first group of Kurdish fighters to withdraw from Turkey under a peace process has entered North Iraq. The men and women arrived in the area of Hedor near Metina Mountain on the Turkish-Iraqi border and were greeted by comrades from the Kurdistan Workers' Party, known as PKK, in a symbolic step towards ending a 3-decades-old insurgency. They were carrying Kalashnikov assault rifles, light machine guns, and rocket-propelled grenade launchers and had rucksacks on their backs. After the welcome, the apparently exhausted fighters put down their weapons and warmed themselves at a fire. PKK fighters began leaving their position in southeast Turkey on May 8 after a ceasefire was declared by Abdullah Öcalan, their jailed leader, in March to end a conflict that has killed over 40,000 people. A boat carrying 200 Rohingya Muslims who were evacuating ahead of a storm has capsized off western Myanmar, killing all but only one person. Kristen Mildren of the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Aid said there was only one confirmed survivor from Tuesday's accident. The victims were trying to escape Cyclone Mahasin, which is expected on Thursday and Friday. The UN has warned the storm could lead to life-threatening conditions. And Myanmar state television said on Monday that thousands of people displaced by communal violence last year had been evacuated from makeshift camps to safer ground in the event of a storm. For a world around the news in brief, Saudi Arabia confirms 4 new cases of the SARS-like coronavirus in its eastern province. State media reports citing the health ministry, which said that one of the 4 new cases had been treated and the patient had been released from hospital, while the 3 other new cases were still undergoing. On Sunday, Saudi Arabia said it had 24 total of confirmed cases since the disease was identified last year, and 15 of whom have died. The new CAN virus caused coughing, fever, and pneumonia. An Italian court in Grosseto resumed its hearing to decide who should stand trial and under which charges for the Costa Concordia tragedy, in which 42 people were killed. A year and a half after the incident, the pre-court hearing is taking place in a theater in the center of the Tuscan town in order to allow great numbers of people to attend the proceedings if warranted. Prosecutors are seeking to have the ship's captain, Francesco Schettino, tried on charges including manslaughter, causing a shipwreck, and abandoning ship. A Philadelphia doctor was found guilty of murdering 3 babies during abortions at a clinic serving low-income women, in a case that casts a national spotlight on the controversial practice of late-term abortions. Dr. Kermit Gosnell, who is 72 years old, the now shuttered Women's Medical Society clinic, faces the possibility of the death penalty. The case focused on whether the infants were born alive and then killed. He was accused of delivering live babies during late-term abortions and then deliberately severing their spinal cords. Actress Angelina Jolie announced in a New York Times op-ed article that she underwent a preventive double mastectomy after learning she carries a mutation of the gene BRCA1, which sharply increases her risk of developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer. Well, Angelina wrote, "My doctors estimated that I had an 87% risk of breast cancer and a 50% risk of ovarian cancer, although the risk is different in the case of each woman. Once I knew that this was my reality, I decided to be proactive and to minimize the risk as much as I could. I made a decision to have a preventive double mastectomy. In the Times op-ed titled My Medical Choice, Jolie said she finished 3 months of medical procedures at the Pink Lotus Breast Cancer in California on April 27th that included the mastectomies and reconstruction. She also said her chances of developing breast cancers have dropped from 87% to under 5%. A mastectomy is an operation that removes all or part of the breast. On that note, we remind you of today's headlines. Prime Minister-designate Tamam Salam discusses with President Michel Sleiman the latest development regarding the formation of a new cabinet. The Progressive Socialist Party says that Shaiba proposed several electoral draft laws based on the winner-takes-all system in an attempt to resolve the dispute on the Orthodox gathering plan. U.S. President Barack Obama and British Prime Minister David Cameron pledged their continued support for the people of Syria, including more humanitarian aid. Those are your Tuesday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Yumna Naufal, wishing you a good night.
أي سلاح ولو كان كاسرا للتوازن.
ليش ما كسر التوازن الدول؟
أنا مع المصلحة الوطنية.